So now that we have this measure of how well a market is working based on the welfare of the people participating in the market, the consumers and firms, we can see that the market arrives at the level of welfare that is the most you can hope for. And let's see why that's the case. Okay. So we'll start with a market that looks like this. We've got demand here and we've got supply here. They cross here. And this is what the market would do. All right. Let's just actually focus on the quantity because that's the big thing we care about. The total welfare of this market is the consumer surplus, which is actually going to be somewhere in here, and the producer surplus, which if I keep shading this in is going to be here. So this is the total welfare, and it flows to consumers and it flows to firms. What if sort of like the benevolent supercomputer that's planning the society thought Q star is not actually a good choice. Let's instead produce more. This market should be producing more. The market did a bad job of deciding how much to produce. So let's increase Q to this one over here with a bar over it. What's going on here? Well, we can think of the value that the market is creating as the difference between people's willingness to pay and marginal cost, okay? All right, and we stick a price in the middle which determines how that value gets split up between the consumer and the firm, okay? But anytime that willingness to pay is greater than marginal cost, it's a Pareto improvement, meaning it makes somebody better off and nobody worse off if we make that product. And why is that? Why is it a Pareto improvement? Because somebody values that product more than the resource cost to make it. Okay, and so if we make it, there's some kind of surplus between what they would be willing to pay and what the firm has to pay to make it that can be split up and negotiated over, and it can be win-win. Okay, the firm can get a price that's above its marginal cost and the consumer below its willingness to pay, and they both enjoy some surplus. Okay. However, when the supercomputer or somebody says, let's produce more, we break that relationship. Over here in this range, so let's make dashed lines up here. From here to here, marginal cost is greater than willingness to pay, okay? And we know that because the supply curve is just the marginal cost of all the firms out there added up over their quantities. And the demand is people's willingness to pay for these products. So everything in between these two lines creates sort of negative value because it takes more resources to create. The cost of those resources does not compensate, like people don't want the good enough to justify using the resources in that way. Okay. Their willingness to pay is less than the cost of producing it. And so it's possible that if the price is, up here, for example, then the firm, hey, it benefits from being able to produce at Q bar, but now consumers are worse off because they're paying a price that's far above their actual willingness to pay. Alternatively, if we made the price down here, now consumers are happy to buy the good at this price, but firms are worse off because they're not compensated for they're not adequately compensated. The price they receive is less than their cost. And any price in between there is going to leave people unhappy. So like here, if we pick this one, then supply is going to be good up to here, but people are going to be paying more for the product than they want. And then after that point, people are still not going to value it at the price, but the price is not even going to cover the cost. So basically, if we try to increase the quantity more, we enter this range where the cost of producing these goods exceeds the value we get from them. And so we're in a bad situation. Okay, we're in a situation where there's no value that's really being created. Conversely, suppose we say, all right, well, we're overproducing. We're being capitalist. We're using too many resources. That's not actually like a total joke. There are It's possible that costs do not properly take into account all the real costs of something, and we're going to have a whole unit on that for later. But for now, let's just ignore those issues. We'll come back to them. On this domain over here, willingness to pay is less than marginal, I said that before, let's say, is greater than marginal cost. Okay? What does that mean? So that means everybody gets this value here because they get the value for the difference between the willingness to pay and the cost for all the transactions that do occur. And we're saying that we're doing fewer transactions than we originally did. But there's this space here that is like Pareto improvement, okay? This is a region where people value these goods at a rate that is higher than their cost to make. And so society should create those things. It's a good use of resources, okay? People like the output more than the cost of the inputs, okay? And win-win trades can be arranged where they can agree on a price between their willingness to pay and the marginal cost, and everybody can benefit, okay? It's only right there at Q star and a price of P star that we get this maximization of welfare, okay? And that comes because the price equates marginal cost and willingness to pay, okay? It acts as this bridge between consumers and firms, and it exactly allocates resources in a society appropriately because we use resources so long as the value we get from those resources exceeds their cost. And then we stop once we reach the point where the value we get from those resources exactly equals their cost. And we don't go any further. If we went further, we'd be in a position where the cost of those resources exceeds the value people get out of it. All right. And in that sense, markets maximize welfare. So this is one reason why markets are desirable. But this is not the same kind of level of proof that we did for Unit 1.5. And I think the unit after this one will finally show that the markets don't only just do this for a single market, but they actually do this for all markets. Okay, they deliver a Pareto efficient outcome.